travesty what they're committing. You know, certain outlets like ESPN, who's publicly promoting that it's been an undisputed, and then you see an outlet like DAZN come back and promote that the Kambosos and Teofimo Lopez was just a unification. It wasn't an undisputed. But then you hear the ESPN coming back again and saying that it's undisputed. Well, this is a travesty to Devin's career. I mean, it's ridiculous that they would put that up, right? Knowing that it is a dispute. It's just as ridiculous as them putting up that Lomachenko is undefeated, when we know that Lomachenko is not undefeated. He lost his, I think, first or second fight, but he was provided an opportunity to fight for a world title. Then he lost and came back and fought again. He fought and lost with Teofimo, right? It's our turn. Teofimo has lost. Lomachenko has lost. Ryan Garcia, I mean, he's not anywhere to be found right now, right? But God bless him and his family during these times. But the only fight is George Kambosos and Devin Haney.
Well, we know Kambosos is not undisputed because you can't be undisputed if there's more than one champion in the division. I want to touch on something you brought up, which is ESPN. They back false advertising again, calling Kambosos undisputed. Is Kambosos' undisputed title as real as Lomachenko undefeated record they had on their program? Can you elaborate on that?
Well, one thing that I know is that Lomachenko is not undefeated and Kambosos is not undisputed. That's one thing that I know for sure. You know what I mean? Now, we know that ESPN has promoted both, or will promote both, the same. They will promote Lomachenko as undefeated, and they will promote Kambosos as undisputed. And they will promote Teofimo Lopez as undisputed. Both are ridiculous to me. And we would hope that the good people over at ESPN, who's been doing a heck of a great job over the years covering sports like no other, we've sat there as a family and watched ESPN and cover, but it's the actual travesty what's happening with Dev, and the fact that the not correct description is being given. Devin is the baddest motor scooter in the lightweight division, and Devin is the longest reigning champion in the division, right? You see new faces and all that, but Devin has been holding his belt, and he done defended it 4 times. Linares is still in the top 10, and Jojo Diaz was the top 5. Linares is still in the top 10. When we fought him, he was in the top 10, and he's still in the top 10. And Jojo Diaz was in the top 5, and that's in the 35-pound division. With Gamboa fought Tank for 12 rounds. Then Devin, completely outclassed Gamboa for 12 rounds and didn't get hit with nothing. But when you talk about at 135, you talk about Tank's opponents, you only have Gamboa and Issa Cruz. And like I said, it's the same belt that Sugar Ray. It's the same belt that Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali, all the greats, including the guys that have it now too. The bad jokers that have it now too. It's a bunch of them.
Can you touch on how Devin Haney got the belt? We know he's the longest reigning champion, but can you talk about how he got the belt? 20 years old, he challenged so-called pound for pound #1 at the time.
Yeah,
Lomachenko.
Absolutely. And when you let them know that you don't want the smoke, or that you're trying to do something else, or you're trying to make something happen, you know what happened with Lomachenko? He got stripped. And then Devin got elevated to full world champion. And you'll know it because when Lomachenko came back and said, he said, Devin got my belt. Wait a minute. But no, you got stripped. When the stripping happens, it means that you agree to become, when the stripping happens, you become a super mandatory. You know what I mean? You become not just a mandatory, you become a super mandatory that you can jump in front of the mandatory and demand the fight. So you're not the champion.
You're giving the description of the franchise. You're giving the description of the franchise.
But you're the super mandatory. You see what I mean?
Loma was the franchise champion. That's a way that the WBC has of stripping a guy without really stripping him. But then the regular champion is considered a notch below the franchise champion. But you say because you have that belt, you're disputing his Teo's claim to the title?
No, the franchise title is a way to duck your mandatory. I have mandatories. I'm the WBC champion, and I have mandatories. When I was his mandatory, he petitioned to become a franchise champion to where he didn't have any mandatories. Devin Haney has mandatories. The franchise title is for ducks.
A franchise champion means you didn't have to fight your mandatory. That's a duck. So Devin collects the belt because what else is he supposed to do?
So when you say, you can't say Teofimo has all the belts or Teofimo's undisputed or Teofimo is the champion in the lightweight division because there's still one more belt. He has a franchise title. I'm the WBC world champion.
Do you believe at 20 years old you're ready for that type of challenge?
I think you said his name wrong. It's Lomachenko because he doesn't want to fight me. But it's I feel like I'm ready for the fight. This is the WBC mandatory. So Lomachenko, come on, man, let's get this fight going.
A lot of guys have said they want Lomachenko. You're the next on that list.
Lomachenko.
My mistake.
Then Devin came back and said, because of the pandemic, he says, no, I'm ready to fight for my belt. I'm ready to defend. We sent over a letter and said, we'll defend against Javier Fortuna. Javier Fortuna answered the request back and said he's comfortable fighting Ryan Garcia first. Ryan Garcia ducked out the fight, and he ended up having to fight Jojo Diaz. Then we beat Jojo Diaz after
Ryan
we beat Jorge Linares.
That's exactly how it went. Loma was stripped of his title, gave up the title to Devin Haney. Then Ryan didn't want to fight Devin Haney as a mandatory. So hopefully Kambosos will be a man of his word and take the fight. But I do want to ask you, is it surprising to you that ESPN, they will dismiss the fact that Devin Haney, like you pointed out, is the longest reigning champion and flat out lie to the public, losing all credibility in the process by calling Kambosos undisputed, having Lomachenko listed as undefeated when he's not, completely lying to the public. I mean, is that...
Well, no, listen, you're 100% right. And I told you, it's a travesty has happened. We want it to be corrected. We want the ESPN, the good people over at ESPN, to correct what they've made a mistake on. And I'm saying not just unharmful error, this is a harmful error because we're letting people know that's coming to boxing in 2022 the wrong message, the wrong thing. And it's such a big platform, that ESPN, we've heard the other promoters brag about what they can do on the ESPN platform, but we need ESPN to be as mindful and to show as much as integrity that they do in the other sports. Make sure that the journalism that they're doing for boxing is the same thing that they do with basketball and football, outside of this very, very bad thing with Devin in the description that he's not the longest reigning champion in the lightweight division. And you cannot not include him in if you're saying that someone is undisputed.
In your opinion, why Andre Ward and Timothy Bradley, who are legends in the sport, never said anything to that, knowing the facts at hand?
Well, once that they've taken on the job to be part of corporate America, meaning having a job to do for the Top Rank company, because Top Rank and ESPN works hand in hand, and they do as much as they can to keep it lit for the top ranked fighters. And I think everyone, all the hardcore boxing fans know and understand what Timothy Bradley and Andre Ward do, you know what I mean? And how valuable their voice is to the top ranked fighters and what they do for them. We just keep working, you know what I'm saying? We just keep working. We know that outlets like this give us an opportunity to come on and refute any of the false narratives that's being put out. And that's just what we do. We back ours up. They run their programming when they run their programming, and then we do ours. You know what I'm saying?
So you're saying Andre Ward and Bradley are being paid to either lie or sit quietly there and hear the lie?
No, absolutely. As hard as they've had to do is to come up in the ranks and to know what it takes to get in the position that Devin is in, and you don't speak up against it, then I think that you're being censored. You know what I mean? Censored in a way that you have to take care of your family. And I respect whatever it is, but when we're talking about Devin, you're gonna definitely hear, mine. And mine doesn't have as much censorship.
And the only reason I brought them up is because I have tremendous respect for Andre Ward, but at the same time, was the irony of it, they dealt with the same double standard. Andre Ward and Timothy Bradley, they dealt with the same double standard throughout their entire career. So it's kind of shocking to see them not stand up for a cause. Just a couple super chats before we move on. Much love to Bill and Devin. Get rid of Loma too. By the way, where can I order the sweater? They say everything but fight. And that's what it initially comes down to, is that they say everything but let's fight. Kambosos is playing from the TO playback, talking way too much and backtracking. A man is only as good as his word. He gave Devin his word to fight. So let's hope he does keep that word, Bill. Netflix should make a series when ducking Devin Haney goes wrong. Episode 1, Loma. Episode 2, Tio. Episode 3, Kambosos. And episode 4, Ryan Garcia. So what's the last thing you want to say to the fans?
Well, I don't want to leave any stone unturned. I want to definitely applaud the Kambosos team and what they've done thus far, right? Shout out to Lou DiBella, you know what I mean, hanging in with a fighter, having a resurgence, with a champion that he can, be involved in some sort of the decision making. I know that it's a new day and time with this social media. Thank you for having me on your platform. Akhi, as always, the fighters of today who you've seen on a couple things that changed on George Kambosos' IG. One, him, the one thing that I like, let me talk about that I like, is that I see ferocious promotions on there. Shout out to his team and what they're doing. The thing that I didn't like necessarily to see is that he put Undisputed on there. This is something that he said that he would not do, right? So it's a chance for them to make right instead of making this thing more wrong. And like the brother had said that called in, don't be number 4, right? Do not be number 4, Mr. Kambosos.
Devin Haney. There is only one fight for Devin Haney in boxing, and there is only one fight for George Kambosos in boxing. It's the big undisputed argument. Who is undisputed? I will answer that as Father Christmas. Ho ho, I will tell you, George Kambosos is definitely not the undisputed world lightweight champion, because Devin Haney is the WBC lightweight world champion. And as great as Mr. Kambosos is, he cannot say he is undisputed until he challenges and potentially defeats Devin Haney. Chance to do it in Australia, create a historic moment after your emphatic win at Madison Square Garden. So let's bring the gifts out to the people. George Kambosos against Devin Haney. April, May 2022, anywhere you want in Australia.
Do you remember a time where Lennox Lewis had got the WBC belt when Riddick Bowe didn't fight him?
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
When Riddick Bowe defeated Holyfield, and he had to fight Lennox Lewis, and he just simply dumped the belt in a trash can.
Mm-hmm.
Lennox Lewis was given the recognition as world champion. So there is precedent.
Yes.
You cannot be unjust, and this is what happens. So there's no question.
Right.
You know, all this back and forth.
So let me ask you, Lomachenko, why don't they have the mandatories? And then why couldn't we then challenge Lomachenko? Because when you made Lomachenko the franchise champion, you made him untouchable, where Devin couldn't then challenge him. And you said that he was the franchise designation. So then that took us from being able to challenge Lomachenko, because we were interim champion.
But the WBC has been completely consistent, because when your son at the convention was officially named champion.
Why isn't Lomachenko available to us then?
No, because Lomachenko, right at the convention, he kept on the stage, and we have the video,
Yes,
and he
I remember.
signed the franchise. At that same moment, Devin Haney was appointed WBC champion at that same moment.
But while
He
he was
did
on the
not-
stage,
Devin
while he was on
Haney-
the stage, he's not available to none of your sanctioning body fighters for us to challenge Lomachenko. When he got up on that stage, he was taking off the possibility of us being able to challenge him or petition to fight him. I could have never petitioned to fight him.
Yeah, that would have to be voluntary. Yes, that would have to be voluntary. So when you had the convention, I believe was September, October, you fought in a very close time. The WBC supported the opponent that you requested.
But
And
that opponent is the opponent that's available. Why wasn't Lomachenko available for us to challenge him?
Because
or us to petition to
Lomachenko
fight
was
him?
appointed franchise champion.
But that's what I'm saying is he was not available. So what I'm asking is how can a champion that represent you guys, where he's only fought one time for the vacant belt, be considered a supreme champion that no one in the WBC can challenge?
Anyone can challenge.
How? How?
They can
And he's,
fight.
and huh?
Look, I don't know why we're having this discussion.
No. I'm
I
asking.
don't
No, a question
understand
to
where
you, sir.
it's leading to. It is very clear. I said 10 minutes, and it's been 40 minutes longer.
So,
I want to accommodate
so
you.
does that make the so
I
does
don't
that
see
make
where
the
it's going,
supreme
Mr.
champion?
Haney. If you
No,
want to
but-
say the WBC has done wrong to you,
I did not choose him. He requested, Canelo requested. So we sent out a vote and we analyzed his history.
Canelo and Lomachenko requested?
Absolutely.
Ooh, you just made headlines.
Lomachenko,
You just made headlines.
Lomachenko, top rank, requested. And let me tell you, we analyzed the request. Top of the top.
Define the franchise belt. Can you define it?
The franchise is not a belt, it's not a championship, it's a designation given to elite, unique fighters who carry the industry of the sport of boxing. Canelo Alvarez and Lomachenko are two sensational fighters who carry the industry.
Last man even said they doing that to protect him.
Right.
Somebody beat him, but they don't get a belt.
There you go.
The franchise belt is protect them from the big black guys.
So you would favor Devin Haney to beat Vasyl Lomachenko?